Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Coming up.
He's a real moaner. At Fulham, they're just very much like, it's just Marco.
The analogy I use in the third round is like, you know the old films where someone's stranded at sea and they think they found refuge on a rock, and then it turns out the rock's a fucking massive Godzilla and it eats them up. I've got a question for you guys. If Fulham were an international team, where would we get to in the World Cup?
Really good question.
I reckon every team, the top 3 or 4 in the Prem, would all win the World Cup.
Welcome aboard to Whistleblowers, the podcast. For the first time, I can say we have rock and roll royalty here today. Mark Clattenburg, our rock and roll referee.
So true.
Flown all the way in from some glorious sunny destination. Good to see you, Mark.
Thank you very much. It's the same crack every week.
It's the same part every week. We've got
crap every week.
Ian Ladyman, who at 5:25 was scratching his arse like a bear with 2 hands, which makes me laugh every time. 4 paws. Great to see you, Mr. Ladyman.
Lovely to be here.
And then one of my favourite people of the last 25 years of my career, a phenomenal musician, a wonderful author, a great podcaster, a brilliant human being, a great musician, one of the most talented blokes, I think, of my generation. One and only Felix White of the Maccabees. All right, Felix?
Wow, Gordon, lovely to hear that, man. Amazing.
Such a talented man.
Thank you so much. Joe, I was thinking about you the other day because when the Maccabees ended, I was doing Radio X in for John Kennedy, wondering what I was going to do in my life. And I was thinking about you because you were taking me aside almost every day and giving me a little pep talk about how life was going to be all right.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do.
About 8 years ago. Yeah. So it's nice to be back on a show with you again now.
Felix,
life was all right.
Now.
Felix, could you lend me £500,000? No, Felix, one of the things recently that really turned my head, and I thought, this is just the Major League Baseball stuff, right? So the way you've gone from playing a guitar in a band to suddenly being a regular pundit on baseball.
Mate, can I tell you about that?
Yeah.
Because that happened with, I don't know if you guys like baseball. Are you into baseball?
I love going to baseball when I'm in America.
Yeah.
Just because of the atmosphere of the stadiums and the history. The game itself can be a little bit slow.
Yeah.
I love the game itself. That's the only thing I care about, the intricacy.
It takes too long.
But, Mark, it's the best thing in the world. If I sat with you for 4 hours and described the nuance going on, I think I could lock you in. Yeah. But anyway, this happened like about 10 years ago, right? The Maccabees were on tour in America. And for whatever reason, I decided to do the tour sober.
Yeah.
And so I had nothing to do for a month. And I just ended up in bars drinking sort of Cokes or whatever. And I just realised baseball's on everywhere across America. Yeah. And so I ended up having all these conversations with people, learning about it, realising, it's just like cricket. What I didn't realise was, years later, I thought I had this idea, I'll write a road trip book about baseball. So I went to MLB in Europe and said, I've got this idea, And they just said to me, do you know what? Like, that's a good idea or whatever, but we need someone to present the baseball on the BBC.
That never happens to me.
Like it just happened in the conversation. Yeah. So I forgot about the book, and then now I fly to New York and do the baseball coverage at the MLB network, where I'm like Alan Partridge, like the English guy, just going like, "What was that?" or having to describe it for people. But I've fallen so deeply in love with it. Like it's such a beautiful sport. It aesthetically looks beautiful. I'm jealous of it because cricket obviously is not the coolest sport in the world. Baseball is culturally, everyone walking around in the best clothes, all the films. You know what I mean? Yeah. It makes me long for what cricket could have been had we had a few different circumstances go its way in the last 100 years.
Best baseball stadium, because some of them are magnificent.
Oh, mate, you know what? I mean, there's a football link here because they own Liverpool, but Fenway Park.
Do you know what? Yeah. I'm with you, Felix.
That place, you know, like we're losing them at the moment in football, like stadiums that you can sense all the history. You can, that's why Craven Cottage is.
The Italians say a building has a warm ghost.
Exactly.
It's a similar thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I always feel at Craven Cottage, like, I can almost picture and see Johnny Haynes there.
Yeah.
And you can have that at Fenway Park where you're like, you can sense the hundreds of years of hurt and history and all that.
I did think it was smart what they did with the Yankees when they basically, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. They knocked it down because they had to, because it was too old, and they built it across the road in identical stadium, essentially, across the road, didn't they?
They did, but they did that as well with Metz, with Shea Stadium, where the Beatles played.
The Beatles played,
yeah.
And then, so you can still go and stand at home plate and where the Beatles are on stage, but it's like right next door.
What about the new San Francisco one by the water? That is pretty good. That guy who has the job of, so the new, I don't know where the old San Francisco one was, by the way.
It's a great
but the new one, I've only been to his place when I've been on tour with football clubs.
Yeah.
So whenever I go, I thought, I'm going to baseball.
Yeah.
You know, don't you like you don't need to drink every night, or you weren't drinking it all.
Yeah.
The baseball. And the San Francisco one, new one down by the water, and they've got a guy whose job it is essentially just to paddle a canoe, like that guy who used to have at Shrewsbury for the football, paddle his canoe around just aimlessly, waiting for a home run to pop out, which often doesn't happen.
What a job.
Yeah. And he gets the ball. Well, I just think, why can't they just lose the ball? Why do they have to get the ball back?
And that's the only link you'll ever hear between Shrewsbury and But like the thing I'll just quickly say about baseball is like I'm tweaking out now, Gordon Rex. I'm doing back-to-back games quite often. And I did it last week where they're forgetting now that I don't know enough about baseball to like hang in there in conversation. So like
the novelty's wearing off.
The production team will forget to like sort of mollycoddle me, and we'll be cutting to the studio and be talking about ERAs and WAR averages and things like that, which I just don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like I had an existential crisis and jet lag last week where I literally nearly looked down the lens of the camera live on the BBC and said, I'm so sorry. I thought I was a baseball presenter, but I'm just clearly not. Yeah. And I'm going to leave now.
Yeah.
And let you guys get on with it.
Totally. To keep the conversation on the right level for this podcast, I once hit a guy in the back of the head with some scalding hot dog juice at the the two Chicago stadiums. Wrigley Field.
Yeah, in a White Sox,
Yeah, sat there, just waiting for the game to start, hot dog, bit into it.
The hot dog
juice shot out at the end of the hot dog.
Oh no!
And smashed the bloke on the row in front on the back of the head and scalded it.
No,
this bloke.
And he felt it.
Yeah, he certainly did.
Where there's blame, there's a claim.
He absolutely felt it. Yeah.
I've only been to one game. I went to watch the Twins, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And the highlight was the peanut thrower. The guy who the peanuts. So you put your hand up.
Yeah,
he launches them. You put your hand up, and pinpoint accuracy lands in your hand. But the most amazing thing is you put your money across and the money goes along the line. But what was amazing, the change came back. Imagine that. The change would never come back, would it?
Yeah. So good. Yeah. The other thing is, like, obviously in America, you don't have the concept of home and away fans.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got a lot of people together. I was at Yankees Red Sox, and it's actually it's like friendly enough, but it is right on the edge, but it never tips over right into a fight. Yeah. But it makes it vibrant and exciting because people are shouting at each other. Yeah. There's almost like that pact, like this isn't going to tip into if Everton and Liverpool were next to each other type vibe. Yeah. But it's just there.
Yankees is expensive. It was last time I went, which was a long time ago.
Probably, well, everything's expensive.
Everything's expensive. I should offer some context here to you, lads. So, way back in the day on XFM, I'm going to say maybe 2008, I had an amazing producer, a guy called Matt Deverson, who's now the boss of Radio X, and he was really into cricket. And he used to laugh at how little I knew about cricket. Yeah. So he said, you know what we should do to make this XFM friendly is to get Felix on, because he's the person who knows the most about cricket out of anybody I've ever met.
Yeah, that's true.
So Felix used to ring every week and explain what was going on to me, because I used to take the piss and say, right, tell me what's happening at the Rounders then. How many cucumber sandwiches have you had today?
And I was doing it seriously. I was like, oh, this could be and it was my into cricket world. Like, that's the first cricket job I ever got, you taking the piss out of me, like being a cricket correspondent. And then I realised, like, a few shows in, like, Gordon started asking me, like, how long have you spent at the crease then? I was like, oh, Gordon's taking the piss. I was doing proper cricket correspondency.
But it was a really good... I listened back, somebody sent me a link recently because it came up in Tailenders, something you talked about, and it had gone all the way back to 2008. And it used to be brilliant because, again, I have actually got into cricket as a result of Felix from the
mate.
Which is quite a mad thing, because I've lived in London for, 25 years. Yeah. I thought I better try and pay a bit more attention to this sport.
Yeah.
But also the other connection here is that Felix is a massive Fulham fan, right? And we should get to the point of talking about football at some point. But I've got a mad connection with Fulham, where one of my best pals signed as a young man, a guy called Kieran McInespie.
Yeah, Kieran McInespie?
Yeah, one of my best friends.
No way, right back. Centre back,
yeah. So Jean Tigana era. John Collins brought him down because he was actually taken to the World Cup in 1998. In a way, they kind of took Theo Walcott as like a future star of Scottish football. Yeah. And anyway, as the classic Scottish football story tends to go, you take a young lad from Glasgow to London and things went disastrously wrong.
Yeah.
And I spent most of my time hanging around with him in London,
No
getting up to no
way.
good, to the point where he was signed for Fulham and occasionally playing with me in the Southern Amateur League.
Really?
Just because he wanted to be with his mates.
Yeah.
But I got a real insight into Fulham then, because the Teaganite era, the professionalism and the fitness,
What an era.
John Collins. But we used to go and watch Fulham a lot
what a
in that era. And what a team that
What
was.
a team.
I mean, that era, I'd have been 99, 2000.
Yeah, 99 it
2001.
would have been. Yeah, we bulldozed teams at that time. And a emotive thing about that Fulham team was that it was only about 6 years previous that Fulham were about to go out of existence.
Yeah.
So there was a small hangover. We missed a whole generation of fans at Fulham because there was wilderness years. But for the people that were slightly older than me, it was very, very emotional to see Fulham playing football like that. Because we had Louis Sahar in that team,
Yeah.
Edwin van der Sar, and they weren't only better than teams in the
Lewis
Championship.
Boamorty, I remember.
Boa Morte, they
a
were
player he was.
fitter, and we beat teams 5-6-0 almost every single week. It was well, as much a carnival as Fulham can be. It was at that time.
carnival.
It was posh carnival at Fulham, but it was fantastic. But that's interesting about Kieran McAnespie, because I remember talking to, do you remember a guy called Sean Kavanagh?
Yeah.
Played in the wing for Fulham. He came for Fulham when he was very young, and that's just given me a flashback to talking to him and just realising you're a child.
Yeah.
Completely out of your universe,
Yeah.
just like thrown into this thing, like good luck type thing, and how difficult that is actually.
Because my missus went to college in Epsom, Lane Theatre Art, so all the Fulham boys lived around there. And I was playing football and coaching for Curver at the time. I'd end up knocking around with them quite a bit. But, some of the stuff that happened around them was wild. Like John Harley, somebody I remember, right? So John Terry, Epsom boy, right? He was living around there.
Yeah.
There's a guy again, Stephen Broad, who was captain of the Chelsea youth team. And John Harley was on the bench for Chelsea in the FA Cup final, then signed for Fulham for 3.5 million. And Al Fayed gave him 10% in cash in a suitcase. And he bought a house with no mortgage.
Wow.
In Epsom at that point, so 2000, something like that, 99. And he was getting, I think, something like 10 grand a week basic playing for Fulham, right? And then a bonus if they won. And they were winning at that point. So by the time he was 21, he was like, I've got more, I don't know what to do with this. You go around to his house, he'd have like 14 pairs of jeans stacked up.
Just like because
He didn't know how to spend that money. He had no mortgage. So his money was his earning. I remember I was really struggling at the time. And, my missus working in the West End, like in bands and all the rest of it. And I was hustling as hard as I can. And there's this guy the same age as me and at that level of wealth at that point. But you couldn't begrudge him it because they were a really good team at that point.
Yeah, they were. Joe, he scored a great goal at Loftus Road.
Yeah.
He did the most famous Fulham goal for the last 20 years, where he hits it just inside the halfway line, like rocket.
Yeah. What player? What player?
Fantastic.
And I believe now all that money's been spent.
As
He
it.
got involved in the used car business with John Harley. Really? I think it's important to start with a bit of Fulham, right? I think Craven Cottage is a really special place. It's an Archibald Leach ground, isn't it? We've talked about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, lattice.
The lattice work of Ibrox and famous guy. I think Villa Park.
Goodison.
Yeah, Goodison.
But to referee Felix's team at Craven Cottage, Mark, what was the experience like for you? Any special games you remember?
It was historical, wasn't it? This as a stadium, but it wasn't the most glamorous stadium, should we say?
Yeah. Cold.
I know that, but always cold. But it was the dressing rooms in the cottage. It was like going into somebody's house.
Yeah,
it's
literally.
like it was historical, but I remember the European. Remember your European run?
Do you do that? Do you
Brilliant
do the
European run. And I remember speaking to a lot of the foreign refs because they had 6 officials then, because they had the 2 before VAR. They had the 2 additional, one behind each goal.
Behind the goal.
And they had to get changed in shifts because it was so small a dressing room. They couldn't get changed altogether. And I I remember winter. I remember doing a game. Was it 20? I remember a game. You played West Ham. Wasn't Boxing Day. It might have been the 20th.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely freezing. It was even colder in the dressing rooms. I remember sending off Kevin Nolan. Remember that game off the ball?
Yeah.
And Kevin had got sent off I think he got sent off just before Christmas, and I think he got the calculation wrong because he had to play in this game and he got sent off again.
Wow.
So but
Beautiful stadium though, Craven
Cottage.
It's a beautiful stadium.
You know what?
really
It was very.
In lots of ways.
I didn't like when you were coming off because you had supporters from both sides. I like to go off one way. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
right.
So you could be abused by both
because you
you're
have to
going
walk
out in
across the
full corner.
pitch.
Yeah. But what I always found with Fulham is you never got much abuse.
Really?
They were very respectful.
Yeah, it's
You know,
a nice
listen to
club.
Felix,
It's
he's
a
a good
family
Yeah,
club,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's quite different, isn't
Can I
it?
quickly ask Mark, like, what do you think about this season? Because we've had a couple, I know every club, as you know better than anyone, feels this way about themselves, like it always happens to us. But we've had a couple of moments this year. The Chelsea one, where Josh King scored and Muniz has been penalised for half stamping him. And then I don't know if you saw the Josh King one when he's been booked for diving when the goalkeeper's made contact with him at Villa.
Yeah.
Can you see those moments? Like what? Because we're feeling a bit hard done by at the moment.
I didn't think that was a penalty.
You didn't think that was a penalty?
I thought Josh King's going down before any contact. And I thought the goalkeeper's leg was already planted. But the Josh King one with a foul in the build-up was certainly not a foul.
You got a Howard Webb phone call for that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
You got
really?
The club got the Howard Webb phone call.
Which I don't agree with, because you can't just apologise to Fulham and then not apologise to the other clubs that have all been wrong that weekend.
Yeah.
But you probably Fulham will see very similar to what happened at Nottingham Forest a couple of years ago. You always think when you're down, not in that lower echelon, or Fulham want to push on and you want to get results, one or two decisions go against you. Probably over the season, everybody says it evens itself up. It probably doesn't. But it just seemed that your mistakes or your perceived mistakes happened so short together. And I think there were key moments in the game, especially the Josh King one and the foul. Any referee that's played the game would know that's not a foul.
Yeah.
You know, and he spoiled a young boy's dream goal, you know. And I think...
Well, it was a VAR call, wasn't it?
It was a VAR call.
Yeah, that's another argument why ex-players should be in the VAR with the VAR.
Do you think, though, with because this is my opinion of it, when it's the big teams that concede goals, they'll look back and back and back as to find some reason it's not a goal? Or do you think that's just a perceived...
that's just probably perceived in it. I just think that's probably perceived in the idea, innit? Because everybody says to me, big clubs get all the decisions.
But we support smaller clubs. We support smaller clubs. I sympathise with that.
But I've had this argument, and one of our arguments back when people ask that question would be that bigger teams always have the ball. They're going to have more possession. They have more. They're going to be duels. The smaller clubs are going to have more duels against the bigger sides. So there's going to be potentially more fouls given, more yellow cards. All of that can be a perceived idea,
The great Kenny Dalglish quote, wasn't it, when he was manager of Liverpool, about why do you get so many penalties? Well, because you're in the penalty box more than anybody else.
Correct. That is an argument.
Felix, what about Marco Silva? Are you worried about him leaving? Because there's a lot of talk of Mark's club, Forest.
Well, it's interesting with Marco. Oh, yeah, Forest. Yeah, there's an interesting thing with Marco is that last year we probably just stayed out of harm's way in that, like, Brentford obviously got raided. Palace are getting raided with their players because they just went that little bit further than us. So Silva sort of hid a little bit from view. So we're in that strange position for them where you kind of want to kick on, finish 7th, 8th, but as soon as you do that, everyone's going to get gets taken from you. So it's not exactly sure. I love Marco Silva. I think he hasn't got any signings this year. It's telling that Josh King is playing in the middle of that midfield rather than Smith Rowe, whoever else it is. He probably doesn't feel like he's got the players that he wants. When you look at the players of teams around us, they all feel like they've evolved a touch more, maybe, especially last 20 minutes of games. Like they feel like they go beyond us in that chunk of games. I would like Marco Silva to get a big job. I think the job for Silva would be United, because I think they need a guy like that now who's pragmatic but is still going to play good football and feels like he's got some sort of spark in him.
Yeah.
Not like a reactionary, like whoever it is, a Deitch or whatever, going like, oh, panic button, but he'll still give you that solidarity. Yeah. So I think someone like a United for the next few years, if Silva's going to go anywhere, I wouldn't go Forest.
The thing with Marco...
the thing is with Forest is the Olympiacos link. When he was coach at Olympiacos, he was successful. Marinakis adores Marco Silva.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the problem you've got is with Marco is that I thought if he really wants to commit to Fulham, because there's been talk over the last few years, hasn't there? Was a club in Saudi?
But
there's always been this links, hasn't it? He's always refused
most of that
them.
Comes from him.
Yeah.
Does it? Yeah, it does. Most of that comes from him.
But why would Marco not sign the contract because when I went to Olympiacos' final against Fiorentina in the Conference League, Marco Silva was one of Mr. Marinakis' guests.
So
there's always this. There's always these
Mr.
links.
Marinakis.
And I just think that is Forest waiting for Marco Silva contract to end, because I think you've said in previous podcasts Marco Silva's release clause would be
Massive.
Massive.
Yeah.
But I think I remember Marco Silva when, and he's had a great path through his management career. Because did he first come?
Candor.
Did he first come at Hull? Hull.
Yeah, well,
And I remember refereeing at Hull. They were in the Premier League. Then did he go to Watford, which was the
Everton.
Everton was the only one that he,
reputation.
in inverted commas, failed.
But he still did all right, actually.
all right.
No, he did okay.
Right,
I absolutely love Marco Silva, and he actually took us up from the Championship, and it was at that point where we felt like we were going to be one of those teams that go up, down, because we'd gone down twice in 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. So what he's achieved actually at Fulham is already amazing. And I just watch Marco Silva for long chunks of the game because he'll get irate at literally everything, but he almost has Mark, you'll probably understand this, the emotional capacity when I watch him to get so like a child losing the plot, and then within a second he'll just switch back.
Yeah.
He'll go back to like reading the game, completely rational, apologising to everyone. So I always feel like he's got this sort of emotional capacity to go up and down through the gears really quickly.
I loved his reaction. I think it was after one game where there was decisions going against. I think it was when he wanted the Josh King penalty.
Yeah.
Who was it? Villa?
That was Villa.
Villa.
Yeah.
And what I loved about him, you could see he was angry. He was frothing inside.
Yeah.
And it was the last few minutes of the game, and he just like, and I think another decision went against Fulham, and he's just like. And it was hilarious to watch. Instead of ranting him, I think he'd had enough at that point, thinking, "Well, what's the point even arguing?"
Exactly. That is exactly.
Some squad though, like fair play to him. Iwobi, Bassey, King, Wilson. You look. I think Smith Rowe's a great player. He sat on the bench.
Well, hopefully, the thing with Smith Rowe is, I should be careful because I do the official Fulham podcast. And I do like he's a very talented footballer, but you just want him to be like the guy that comes and has that physical body language of like, I've come from Arsenal and I'm running the show here because I'm that good. And sometimes he just sort of it feels like he's drifting through games. And you want him to sort of own it. Do you know what I mean? Because when those personalities come down a perceived step to Fulham, do you know what I mean? You hopefully in time he'll have that.
What they've done, Fulham, you've mentioned some of the names there, Gordon, which has been very, very smart. I made a joke last year about them, almost like a home for kind of fallen footballers who've dropped out of big clubs and are ready to come again. And you've mentioned some of so Smith Rowe is one, Iwobi is one.
Leno?
Pereira.
He's a great one.
Pereira is one that's at United. Traore is one. He was briefly on loan at Barcelona.
Absolutely.
So you've mentioned the goalkeeper. Raul. And they've managed to bring them all together and bring a group of players together who've all got a point to prove, being managed by a manager who's got a point to prove.
100%.
Because he got spat out of English football by Everton, disappeared, can't remember where he went, I'm sorry, but he went abroad, and I remember thinking, we might not see Marco Silva again in England because he's done Hull and he's done Watford and he's done Everton, and now his star has fallen, but he came back as well.
100%.
But the only thing, and I think he is talented, the only thing maybe against him is that I don't know how well I do know how well he manages up. And it's not very well. He's a real moaner.
When you say manages up, what do you mean?
To chief execs and
he's a real board and all that.
He's a real moaner. Now at Fulham, I know for a fact that when he moans and when his agent gets these links to clubs in Saudi, particularly in the Portuguese media, at Fulham they're just very much like, it's just Marco. It'll be all right, and it has been all right. Mm-hmm. But if you start playing those games at Forest. With Marinakis, you start playing those games at Man United. To your point, Felix, about him maybe being a Man United manager, then you've got to. If you're too confrontational, you're
right.
Out.
You're right. Tricky. It probably works
Tricky
exactly
balance.
right at Fulham because in the past, even Roy Hodgson's great Fulham team, they were great because they sort of knew their limitations and played within them. The difference with Marco, as you explained there, is that he wants to push beyond. That feeling about what the club is. Which is great. And it does permeate everywhere. Just that sense of like, we could be more than the history of the club's been. I was
at the one at Old Trafford when he got sent off, but when he got sent off, Mitrovic got sent off. Did William get sent off as well?
Everybody gets sent off. Did they all get? Was that reffing?
So William got sent off for the handball on the line, doesn't he?
I can't discuss that. I actually can't discuss that. We were 1-0 up in the 5th round of the FA Cup. Dominated that game.
Yeah, you did,
17 minutes left. United have an attack. Willian handballs it on the line. He does handball it. Hits his arm. And within 30 seconds, we'd gone from 1-0 up, bossing the game, to Willian's been sent off. Mitrovic has pushed the referee, been sent off. Marco's had a go, been pushed off. They've scored the penalty, and then they scored a minute later as well.
Oh, God.
They literally went from 1-0 up, 11 against 11, to 2-1 down, 11 against 9 with no manager.
You know what I did after that? I went on social media to announce a personal blackout.
Did you do that? I'm taking a break.
Until I process the events.
So it's actually a really good point. There is a reason you're here today,
I did
Felix.
that once and nobody noticed.
The powerful voice of Fleet Street, Ian Ladyman. Good, we'll get a break from him for a bit. No, there is a reason. And it's FA Cup related as well, Felix, because you've written a book, which was launched, I think, at Craven Cottage, was it not?
Yes, no, I've gone to Craven Cottage to read bits about Fulham out, which has been awesome. But I've written a book this year where I've gone to every single round of the FA Cup from extra preliminary to the final. So that's like, I can't remember now, about 15 odd rounds. And what I thought was, you could tell a really succinct story about English football from going to the very lowest level to the final.
15 chapters.
Exactly, but also England, about what football means. So it travels across football, from that. And then obviously it becomes a very personal story as well. But then I end up going with mates who, Sharky, the producer of Tailenders, takes me to Everton. So it's about his story and connection to Everton and how all that kind of thing. So,
Whatever will be
exactly
a matter of life in football.
Exactly, whatever will be, because that is what you hear sung at every single FA Cup game, no matter if it's Penrith in front of 200 people or the final.
But isn't that, we're of a certain age, well, I am. But a lot of that, I think, in England and the UK is still very much what football is about. So when we talked on last week's podcast, for example, about the kind of, the 3 p.m. kind of blackout, whether it should still be with us, and I'm arguing that it should be, because you've got to encourage people to go, got to encourage people to go to games. I still think that's so much of what football is about. To the degree, so if somebody said to me tomorrow, you're never allowed to go and watch Premier League football again for whatever reason, I'd be like, no, I'm all right, that's fine. There's plenty of other football for me to go and watch, and it'd be the type of stuff that you've just been to watch.
Ian, it's so interesting you said that, because one of the games, fortunately for me, is AFC versus MK, which happened to be the first round of the FA Cup. So that becomes about why do we actually go to football and displacement and that kind of thing. And a lot of the AFC fans I spoke to said exactly that, really, that as soon as you just reframe that going to Man United could be going to Croydon Athletic, it's actually exactly the same experience. And you're actually like connected more to an actual community where what I learned in the early rounds is like there's this serious and real authentic friendliness to lower league football matches, which you don't actually get at the highest level, of course, like anything, because you're at a more sort of a popcorn Americanized experience.
It's interesting you say that, because I had the luxury of refereeing in the extra preliminary rounds when I was coming through.
No way.
And I tell you what, them games were more important to them clubs than somebody in the third round or fourth round of Premier League side they took the FA Cup probably to a, maybe I wouldn't use the word arrogance, but they weren't that bothered about the FA Cup. But these teams who are playing in the first round, of going from the extra preliminary to the first round, financially, it's huge. And if you get, I remember Bedlington Terriers, they're a Northeast club, and they got to the second round, and I think it got beat off Notts County in the second round. They beat a Football League club in the first round, and it was incredible because they got a home tie. And for that club, even though it wasn't on TV,
it's massive financially.
It was huge. But it was just for the town, just how, the selling the scarves. It was just amazing to see. But you don't see that in the third, fourth, fifth round. I know a lot of the lower league sides, very rare, especially in the non-league sides, very rare get it past probably the second round. Maybe into the third round. But
totally,
it's a complete wonderful.
The analogy that I use in the book is Tamworth Tottenham, wasn't it, last year? It was a great one. Sorry, excuse me. Accrington Stanley Liverpool was one, I think, as well last year. But in the book, the analogy I use in the third round is like, the old films where like someone's stranded at sea and they think they found refuge on a rock, and then it turns out the rock's a fucking massive Godzilla and it eats them up. That's what like lower league football is with like Man City or whatever. Like, this thing, bosh. Like,
we'll have that.
Yeah, exactly.
You touch on something really interesting for me as well, Felix. Like, having followed it from those preliminary rounds, But what I don't understand is that English attitude to the top football team, right? So Wembley, a quiet atmosphere. You've just enjoyed those brilliant FA Cup atmospheres.
Yeah.
But then you also follow cricket really closely. You wrote a beautiful book about cricket as well and what it means to England cricket fans. But I don't understand how the England cricket team can have that loyal, loving sort of, I don't know, it feels like a proper support. And then the English football team can have this really, I don't know, it feels odd. Like the atmosphere doesn't seem right to me.
You're talking about Tuchel.
Yeah,
saying it's quite-
and he was criticising the fans this week. But then if you compare that to the Scottish fans, right? I love following Scotland. Actually, a lot of the time, this will get me loads of grief, but it's probably because there are fewer Rangers and Celtic fans there. You know, when you're standing next to a guy who supports Elgin and Huntly and lads from the Highland League, and you're following Scotland. I'm a Hibs fan. We don't get to win a lot, but when you're with Scotland, there is a different feeling.
So
But with England, I don't know.
Well, look, Felix.
What's the difference for you, Felix? The question is, what's the difference between following England cricket and England football?
I'm sure you guys have got a more interesting thing to say about what Gordon has than I do. But the difference between English football and English cricket is that there isn't the same tribalism at county cricket level of anything. So the only thing to support really is a national team to really get your teeth into. And so I would always identify more as a Fulham fan than an England fan. It would be more important to me than Fulham win games than England do. And that's something that's sort of crept in over time. The one thing I will say is I've just got my nephew into football who's 8 years old, obsessed with Fulham. The very cool thing about it is I'm watching him learn to read, learn to communicate with adults, learn like about the world through football. It's like a beautiful thing. But he's into England. He wants England to win. So you realise it's all...
Is it because of a player,
the atmosphere at England? It's almost like children, isn't it?
But also,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
I do.
like,
I do.
Also
it's
remember,
the sound of it is children.
Remember that I've been to two Ashes Test matches in Australia at Adelaide, where my sister lives, and the one that we won in 2010 is probably the most incredible sporting things I've ever been to. Yeah, the one when Cook just got
Casually says it, doesn't he?
So anyway, and so I have experienced a bit of that, and I think the difference, Gord, is that if you watch an Ashes series, that's the highest level of cricket you'll ever watch. It's not like that in football.
Such a good point.
People in England would say that the highest level of football is probably the Champions League final or watching Liverpool versus Manchester City. They would say that what the England team produce certainly against Latvia or whatever like the other night, that's not the very pinnacle. Whereas in cricket, it is.
It is.
So I think maybe that's... But also, Felix, you'll know this more than me. Am I right? I think there's quite a bit of crossover. Quite a lot of football fans follow England cricket abroad because you see all their flags with the football teams on, don't you?
Well, what I
There's
like
a bit
about
of
the football
crossover
team
there.
is that it's obviously the reserves sometimes of smaller teams. So you often see the flags of like Hull City, Bradford, because they don't get those days and they get them with England. I've got a question for you guys. If Fulham were an international team, where would we get to in the World Cup?
Really good question.
Would we be because I think we'd be like semi-finalists.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, in this next
do you know
World
what I mean?
Cup,
Like Brentford could win the. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting, yeah.
Where would those teams get to in a World
I
Cup?
think you've answered it. I'd
Semi-finalist,
quarter-final.
Yeah, like
Do you
with
think?
Bournemouth.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do think.
Yeah, actually.
Mark,
yeah, I do.
Mark
do you not?
I'm
disagrees.
saying nothing. I'm saying
No,
nothing.
why not?
So what you would say, Manchester City would win it, or Arsenal would win it?
Yeah,
Every chance
I would
against-
say yeah.
Spain. Do you think Man City would be, I suppose, what would you do?
Wait,
with
Really
Arsenal-
good debate. It's
Arsenal
a really
probably
good
wouldn't.
debate.
I reckon every team, the top 3 or 4 in the Prem, would all win the World Cup.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that.
Yeah.
It's a really good
It's a
shout.
good. Is that because of the togetherness?
Yeah,
Is that
I was gonna
because
say
of
that's
the-
a massive-
the
if you're
bond?
training every
Is that
week.
what you're trying to say?
Yeah, not like personnel, like 11 versus 11, like do it like a sort of computer thing, but just like actual football team, what you see every week and what we see internationally. I think Arsenal beat.
I think it's a great
Anyone.
shout. You could argue, for example, if you
Don't
think
say Arsenal, please.
All right,
We'll have
Liverpool
Henry, the
City.
producer, getting excited there.
if you go back to say I was going to say City, but let's say Liverpool. If you go back to the great Klopp side, without going naming them all, but we know with Mane and Salah and Firmino and
Van Dijk.
I'm
Van Dijk,
mentioning them all now, and Van Dijk and
Robertson.
and Alisson and Trent and Pete Robertson, would they have a chance of beating France in a World Cup final? Yes,
It's actually a great debate.
they
and a
would.
If
great
Eddie Hearn was
question,
listening to this right now, he'd probably
Yeah.
think about putting that on as a spectacle.
They
It would be
should do
great
it.
to see
The
it,
World
wouldn't it?
Cup winners versus the Champions League winners.
That's a game pre-season you would watch.
Gosh.
Yeah,
That's a game, isn't it?
but then who do you play for though? If
Yeah, and England against Newcastle. Who would Gordon play for?
Exactly, yeah, both. Yeah,
What a great debate.
Yeah.
Great debate. But again, Ian, I think you've spent a bit of time, and again, this is what I love about Ian and Mark, actually, is that you've got this insight into international football. A lot of people don't, because you can see a little bit of what Tuchel's up to. Am I right in saying you've had some terse words with the great German this week?
Not terse. He's what I like about him is, without doing too much navel gazing about our industry, is that he's. I get the feeling that he treats the media interactions as just what it is, which at the end of the day is just noise. If you're adult enough to deal with it that way, we know there've been England managers who couldn't deal with it that way. Kevin Keegan, Graham Taylor, Stephen McLaren, were kind of never the same again post England. I don't think Tuchel is in that category. I think he sees the media for what it is. He likes a bit of joust, and he did have a bit of a dig at me with a smile on his face after the Wales game last week when they won 3-0, because I'd sat with him with a group of others the day before, doing the media before the day before the game, and said to him, "You do realise that if you lose this game, all the decisions that you've just made, Bellingham, Foden, blah blah blah, not in the squad, it's going to come down and you're like a bucket of shit." And so obviously I walk into the interview area after the game, and he spies me straight away.
Oh, no way.
And he's just, so am I lucky? Did I get lucky then? Did I get lucky? He's a massive smile on his face.
Yeah.
And I
Fair
think,
play, though.
you think, fair play to you, mate. Absolutely. I told you were going to get criticised if you got it wrong. Looks like you maybe didn't get it wrong.
Yeah.
You're having a bit of go. Absolutely spot on. Fair play to you.
Yeah, I love that.
I like the attitude.
I do. I love that.
And he was...
Because even though he's German, he's got the English sense of humour, and I think for England need that sense of humour. England need that
Personality.
you know,
A little bit of
personality,
personality, yeah.
and he's shown his personality.
You need the broad shoulders to view it in perspective,
Yeah, just
because
flick it off,
he needs to go to America next summer, and just realising that all that noise is just noise, and it shouldn't really affect what happens on the field. Other England managers haven't been able to divorce the two. And look, it's Wales and it's Latvia. All right, they're a much bigger test to come. If they lose the first game of the World Cup next summer, then we'll find out what he's made of.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is, at the moment, everything that I see from him points to a guy who, I don't think he's going to win the World Cup, but I think he's going to be able to handle it, whatever comes his way, and that's half the battle.
They'll never beat Fulham.
Never beat Fulham in the quarter-final.
In the quarter-final.
Give me something he's been drinking. That coffee. Give me some of that coffee.
I haven't played Fulham yet, mate. Can I just ask,
Sorry.
is he not going to play Bellingham? Is he not going to pick Jude Bellingham?
Look, Jude Bellingham has to be in that squad.
He's amazing.
And if he's
Why?
not in that squad,
Would you not?
But what he's done to I don't want to talk too long about this. We've got other things to talk about today. But he's done something that England managers in my memory haven't done for a long time. He's hit upon a team, little bit by circumstance, but he's hit upon this team, hit upon it out between beating Andorra at Villa Park and then going to Belgrade and thrashing Serbia. In those few days, he hit upon this team, and he's clearly decided there's something in this, and I'm going to pick it. And I'm going to pick it against Wales, and I'm going to pick it against Latvia, and now we've got two dead rubbers against Serbia and Albania in November. I think he's going to pick it in those two games.
You see what he's doing.
But they're exciting to watch.
And he's trying to build
competition for places.
but he's trying to build a team.
Yeah.
And too many times England teams have got to major tournaments and he's 2 friendlies away from the start of the tournament, and they're still swapping right backs around and giving someone a go at left midfield, and we'll give the reserve goalkeeper a go. He's obviously decided that is not the way he wants to. He wants to build this team. So to answer your question, Bellingham is going to have to work quite hard to get in that team. He's going to have to get Morgan Rogers out of that team, because that's the position, the 10. He's going to have to get Morgan Rogers out of that team. That is going to be a challenge. I cannot see a way in the world he won't be in the squad. It would be extraordinary, without precedent. Even Hoddle leaving out Gaza in whenever it was, 98, whenever it was.
We know now that we're in partnership with Wix Trade Pro. Now, we all know the real pros want to spend as much time on the job as possible rather than kicking around in store, don't they?
Exactly. And with Wix Trade Pro, you save 10% every time you shop in store or online. No minimum spend. That's like a guaranteed 3 points every week.
VR's checked it, and it's true.
Right, and here's the real time saver. Wix Click and Collect, order online, you head straight to collect in store, grab what you need, and you're back on site before half-time. How about that?
Which allows you more time to get the job done.
Download the Wix Trade Pro app today, sign up, simple as that.
Terms and conditions apply.
What's the difference refereeing an international match compared to a Champions League match or a Premier League
different.
match? What's the main
Respect.
Good question.
Players of respect is completely different
In
from
an international
match.
game?
Yeah.
There's no, you don't see many rash challenges. You don't see a lot of dissent, because I think it seems to be a privilege. And I believe that if you send a player off at international level, it's like a disrespect to your country. Mm-hmm. Where as a team, it's a complete, you know, it's 3 points. The manager's got them for 3 points. I think internationally, when I used to referee international matches, it was so easy. Mm-hmm. It was like, you give an odd free kick. And I heard you point again about crowd, Felix. It's a complete different atmosphere when you're refereeing an international match with a crowd. It's very respectful. It's like, ooh, it's a foul. It's not like the hatred, you know. And I never hear in an international match, you don't know what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, interesting.
But in a domestic match, 100%.
I'm interested in this from Felix's point of view, but when you play a gig and you've got a rider and things are set up nicely for you, is it different when you go to referee a World Cup match or a big international game when you arrive? You know, if you've got a little goodie bag sat there with a nice pair of socks for you.
Socks.
Could do with them now.
Rockstars always say, "What's in your rider?" Socks.
Every socks.
What, the goodie bag?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to love it.
Is
Always international matches, there was a goodie bag.
Yeah.
The goodie bags used to range from. It was always like a club shirt or an international shirt. England always give, because when I acted as a fourth official on friendly matches, they would always get a player's shirt, or like the second, you know, like the clean shirt, but the second or third top that they had. International clubs always did that. Domestic ones, it depends who they were sponsored. Barcelona, for example, I think Samsung was their sponsors. You would get like a Galaxy tablet or whatever. You
Amazing.
know. So yeah, the best gift that was always Bayern Munich. They always, because it must have had a collaboration with Mont Blanc.
Right.
So it was like a Mont Blanc pen.
Right. Oh, nice.
And I remember my assistant referee wanted there was his child. There was a child that was like a bus, like a Bayern Munich bus, you know, like one of them
team coach,
team coach thing, but it was like a little toy,
a dinky toy.
But his child, there was two. He had two children, so I traded his Mont Blanc pen for my bus. I don't think he realised the value of the Mont Blanc pen.
You had two Mont Blanc pens on eBay, not just one.
Hilarious.
Go Felix,
Can I just quickly ask Mark, because you guys speak to Mark every week, obviously, and I don't get to. When the experience of refereeing at the highest level. Because the book actually talks about it a little bit, but the thing that I really missed about playing in the Maccabees when we ended was playing a show, like a big show. I would have the sensation of time slowing down almost to the point where you're not consciously thinking, you're just doing, but stuff would be happening, but it's actually happening very quickly, really slowly. So I'd like see a pint flying through the air, or like notice when a mic stand was gonna fall, like all this stuff, like your senses would be like zoom, like really, and I really missed that afterwards. So when I met you on just after Maccabees finished, I was like in the what people struggle with, like trying to replace that sensation with something.
Yeah.
When you're refereeing, do you have when you think back to it, do you have a similar, like, do you know what I mean? As you're doing a game, is it moving too quickly for you, or are you like, do you feel like you're consciously in thought? Do you know what I mean? Do you understand?
I think most people used to think I had my eyes shut because I saw nothing.
Penalties.
It's interesting because my philosophy was always, I always wanted the game to finish.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was desperate. Like the minute I kicked off, I wanted to get to half time without any mistakes. And if I got to half time without any feeling of mistakes,
No way.
I knew I would nail the second half. It was bizarre. I went in with big confidence in the second half. But I was desperate to get through different points. I used to So I used to work it out. First half wasn't so bad, but second half, 60 minutes, no mistake, no big penalty calls or anything. And then you get in late in the match and you just didn't want anything in the last 5 minutes to you didn't want to give a corner. You didn't want the ball to go in the penalty area, because then you potentially had a decision to make. So it was like, I was happy.
There's
when...
a synergy here that's interesting for me, because again, like a musician mate of mine, he said, "Did you enjoy it?" And I was like, "Oh, it was absolutely amazing." What about you? He went, "Well, I'm working."
You're working.
But you've got the same thing with mistakes, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
One thing goes horribly wrong, and that's a bit of a problem.
But that's saying for you can have the best game, but you can make a horrible decision in the last minute, and that's the thing that everyone.
How did you feel after a gig? Could you sleep, or was it the adrenaline?
No. I could never ever sleep after gigs. So you have so much adrenaline running through you.
Yeah.
Actually recently, because Maccabees played some shows this year, and I forgot what the sensation was, to the point that after the shows, I was so high, like higher than I've ever been. All I needed was cheese on toast, one cigarette, and I was like, I felt like I was like on psychedelics. Just the influx of adrenaline.
That's amazing. What a great feeling.
Endorphin that your body just is naturally receiving from that experience.
What happened? So it was 2017, right? So it was roughly since the
Maccabees. Yeah, back to the Maccabees last played. But obviously when we were doing...
this year when they did a few.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, so we did Glastonbury and some Victoria Park and some other shows this year. But when I was young and 20, you're obviously like drinking and you're young enough, so you're not really experiencing the thing, the feeling, because there's so much happening. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So doing it like in a much more sort of sober, older state, it made me really appreciate... Actually, what it made me think is, that's insane. I feel like that because footballers are doing that. What I've just done to however many people, that was Glastonbury, 50,000 people. Most footballers are doing that every single week, and you were as well.
No, yeah,
to more.
I get what you're saying.
And what your body is actually going through to be looked at like that and under that pressure is probably something you can't even.
So have you ever messed up a solo?
Oh yeah. I've made horrendous mistakes.
What do you do?
The worst thing we ever did, what just pops in my head now is when we were like 18, 19. Do you remember Ben Folds?
Yeah, Ben Folds fan.
Yeah, he took us on tour, Ben Folds, and he was doing arenas, and we hadn't played to more than like 100 people or something. And we played Birmingham Arena where Gladiators was filmed, like whatever, that was it plays.
Contenders ready.
Yeah, exactly. And it was all seated because it was quite sort of more sit down music. And at that time we were much faster punk band, so it was very incongruous. But so we were playing to a silent Birmingham Arena, like 8,000 people, apart from one person in between the songs shouted, "What's your name?" And I went, "Felix." And she goes, "No, what's your band's name?" Oh, Maccabees. And that was an interaction.
Oh man!
So that's what.
Those moments stick
I
with
did
you,
loads
don't
of stupid stuff like that. Did you know that feeling? You're like, saying,
What kind of fan are you, Felix? Are you a
VAR man?
shouter? Or
as a Fulham fan, Ian, I pride myself on not being as tribal sometimes.
Where do you sit?
Well, these days I'm in the
swimming pool.
Johnny Haynes. Swimming pool. It's the guy watching it. I'm in the Johnny Haynes.
Right.
Yeah, with the press bit actually.
Oh, okay.
Because
Cool.
since I've done Fulham Fix, the podcast, I can just get in there. But like in the early days,
I'll
I
see
would
you
be.
before long then. I'll bump into
Yeah,
you
definitely see you there.
before long.
But in the early days, I used to follow the game on the terraces. So I used to be able to stand in the Stevenage Road. Do you remember the bottom half was all standing and the wooden seats behind it, and then so you could go which end Fulham were attacking. You could walk from one end to the other next to the drummer, which was so great.
Felix, thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure,
Really
mate.
appreciate
Pleasure.
it.
Loved it.
Brilliant.
Absolutely loved it. I'm sure I've got a lot more questions for Mark, but I'll ask him another time, mate.
Yeah, definitely.
Come back and do it again, mate.
Definitely come
Thanks,
back.
Ian.
And I'm going to read your book, 100%.
Thanks, man.
The cricket book as well.
Hopefully I'll
It's
get a
always
second copy.
somewhere.
Correct. Yes.
Are you doing the Ashes?
We're not actually. Tail enders going to go out there, but Jimmy's not. He feels like he's not going to go out to Australia because he's going to keep playing and coaching and stuff like that.
He doesn't want to give up, does he, Jimmy? He does not want to give up.
Why should he?
He used to always say to me, I didn't believe him like 10 years ago, that he just would play cricket as long as he could and wasn't thinking about legacy moments and stuff like that. And it just turns out that is completely true. He just wants to play cricket as long as he can.
So you're not going to go out there? You don't think you're going to make it out there?
No, and I also need to sleep.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be watching the Ashes overnight and sleeping during the days and just not working out there, yeah.
Felix, thank you so much.
Thank you. I loved it, guys.
Such a
Thank
joy.
you.
Yeah, whatever will be a matter of life in football. The book is out now. Please get it. 15 chapters, all about the love of the FA Cup, which I think needs to be heard more often because it does get a bit of a hard time for some reason. I don't understand why, but Felix, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure, Gordon.
Thanks for coming on. All that remains for us to do is to get Mark Clattenburg to blow his whistle. Have you brought it?
No, but there's
You've
one over
forgotten
there.
it again.
Gods.
To be fair,
I've retired.
Have you ever heard? Have you ever heard a professional whistle?
I really want to hear it.
The
P's gone. The P's stuck.
It's the loudest thing you will ever hear.
No, it's not.
Thank you very much for watching Whistleblowers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Remember, episodes every Thursday and Tuesday, and on a Sunday, you'll get our clip of the week.